Hello everyone, welcome to the Kiki London YouTube channel. My name is Amanda. In today's video, we are going to be doing some summer beginner friendly nail art using the new Kiki London Summer Crush collection. Now, first of all, let's take a quick look at the collection in case you missed the swatch video. So there are 4 stunning new shades. We have Dolly Pink, True Blue, Bellini Pop and Banana Ripple. As you can see, they are such cute shades. I really love them, so I couldn't wait to get them into a design. And then when I was trying to think of a design to do, I thought it would be fun to do some basic designs using them just to see how all of the colors work together. So throughout this video, we're only going to be using the colors from the new collection. So on the first design, we're going to be doing a marble nail, and I'm going to start off with a base of Banana Ripple. As you can see, this is such a cute yellow shade. It's kind of quite of a bright classic yellow. It's definitely got those banana tones coming through. I feel as though it's described perfectly as sunshine in a bottle, and it definitely will be a yellow that I feel I'm going to reach for all year round, especially when doing nail art and you're needing a yellow as well, because it is very highly pigmented. So I'm going to start off with 2 thin coats of this. It's always good to keep your gel polish coats nice and thin. You only need 2 thin coats to get that true opacity of the color coming through. And then because we're doing a marble, I'm going to have my blooming gel to hand, as this really brings a marble to the next level in my opinion. So I'm going to come straight over the top of our cured Banana Ripple with a coat of blooming gel. Now I'm going to apply this blooming gel to the entire nail so that our marble will flow and bloom beautifully across the nail. Then on a separate palette, I'm going to start creating my marble. Now, even though we've got a base of Banana Ripple, I did still want to add a little bit of it running through the marble. So I'm going to pop all 4 colors onto my palette, making sure that when I pop the gel polish color down onto my palette, that if I get any of the previous color on my bottle brush, I wipe it off before I put it back in the bottle. So just be a little bit mindful of that when you are applying the product this way to your palette. So as you can see, we've got our 4 shades done, and then I'm going to take my dotting tool and swirl these together. Now there are many different ways of doing a marble design, and depending on the technique you use or the way you do it, the marble is going to look slightly different. This is one of my favorite ways to do a marble though. I love how it turns out. So once we've got that marble done on the palette, I'm going to take my round nail art brush and literally scoop that gel polish marble up and transfer it to the nail. And then because you've got the blooming gel down on the nail, that's going to help pull the color from the brush into the blooming gel. And then as you can see, the edges of it are going to start blooming first, and then slowly all of the marble will start blooming, and I just feel as though it gives a really beautiful look. Now you could cover the entire nail with this marble design, but I wanted to have the marble sweeping across, like down across the nail, so that you could still see the pop of that Banana Ripple base. Now what I'm doing is I'm just taking my stripe liner brush and touching up that marble. There was a slight area where there was a little bit more of Bellini Pop rather than any other color, so I just used my stripe liner brush to wiggle in a little bit of True Blue. Now at this point as well, I always like to check that there's no bubbles in the gel polish. If there are any, I'll pop them using either the dotting tool or the stripe liner brush. And I was just pointing out there, I loved how the edges were blue. I was happy with how much it had bloomed, so I popped it into cure. If you do want the gel polish to bloom a little bit more, then just leave it for a few seconds before curing, because once you have popped it into cure, it's going to freeze that gel design in place. Now once you have cured your design, you're going to need to come in and top coat. I always like to top coat my nail art designs using the rubber top coat, where it's a little bit thicker. If you've got any unevenness on the nail from the marble or from any kind of hand painting you've done, it's that little bit thicker that it smooths it out and gives it that really encapsulated feel. As you can see from the light running down the nail, there is no lumps or bumps in the nail. It's super smooth. So I usually like to to float my top coat on, hold it upside down for a few seconds, and then pop the nail into cure. On to the next design, we are going to do a vertical ombre using True Blue and Dolly Pink. So for this design, I highly recommend having the ombre brush. Now, I find vertical ombres a little bit harder to do than horizontal ombres, but I gave this my best shot. So you're going to want to come in with both your colors and apply them side by side. Again, checking your bottle brush that you haven't picked up any of the previous color before you return it to the bottle. And then I always like to start off my ombre by blending that harsh line where the two colors meet. Now, these two colors are very different, so they are going to be a little bit trickier to blend. If you wanted to make this a little bit easier, you could find a similar purple shade that you're creating and run it down the center of the nail. But my challenge for this video was to only use the new collection. So I'm just taking my time to start blending those colors together. So as you can see, I'm using the tip of the ombre brush and blending those colors together, and it's going to start creating a third color, which is the transitional shade between the True Blue and the Dolly Pink. It's kind of creating this dusky purple shade, which was really pretty. Then once you've created that transitional shade, you're going to want to blend your colors into that. So I went into True Blue, blended that into that dusky purple shade, cleaned off my brush, and then blended Dolly Pink into that transitional shade. Now, on your first coat of an ombre, I like to say never stress too much what it looks like. It's your first coat, the color's going to look a little bit uneven, it might look a little bit patchy. You've only applied thin coats of color, so the true opacity isn't coming through yet, so you don't need to stress too much about getting a perfect blend on that first coat, because in a way you're covering it up when you come in and do your second coat anyway. So this is where you can come in and really perfect that blend, literally using the same steps as we did on the first coat. So using the very tips of the brush and using a nice light gentle feathery stroke, I'm going to start going right down the center of the nail and blending those two colors together. And then here I'm going to use a slightly quicker motion just to help speed up creating that blend, especially where I've already got the colors underneath. It's going to allow this second coat of colors to pop. And then I'm just kind of like to look at the ombre from all angles and see any areas that need a little bit more blending than others. For example, it was a lot easier to blend in the True Blue than it was to blend in Dolly Pink, because Dolly Pink is very vibrant, where True Blue has kind of like a more of a medium hue. It's a little bit dusky anyway, a bit muted, so it blended in to that transitional lilac that we've created in the center of the nail. Now, every time you see my ombre brush go out of shot, I have a little alcohol pad to the right of me, and I'm just cleaning my brush on this. It's really important to do this step. I find it makes an ombre so much cleaner by keeping my brush nice and clean, because this way I'm not taking too much of one color into the other. Once I was say like 90% happy with the ombre, I come in again, but this time with my brush turned on its side, so I'm not using as many of the bristles, and just went over it to blend it a little bit more. I then always like to leave the nail to set for a few seconds, just so those brush strokes settle before popping it into cure. And I thought this looked quite cutesy. It definitely had a summer vibe. It kind of reminded me of ice lollies. So it was now time to come in and top coat. And when you do come in and top coat, this will also help reduce any brush strokes that you might have left behind. It smooths everything out. This works really well with a matte top coat as well. I do feel as though if you've got any imperfections in your ombre, they are softened if you come in and do a matte top coat. So if you're not 100% happy with your ombre, try it with a matte finish rather than a glossy. Now we're going to do similar on this now, except for we're going to do a classic horizontal ombre. So I'm starting off with Bellini Pop at the cuticle area, and I like to do an ombre. When I do an ombre like this, I like to bring the first color 3/4 the way down and then push my second color up into it, so that the blend's not necessarily directly halfway down the nail. And I find this way, if I'm doing a full set of ombres, it makes it a little bit easier to get all of the nails consistent. But then we're going to use those same principles as the vertical ombre. but I do feel as though it's a little bit easier on this one. So I'm just coming in and blending that harsh line where Bellini Pop and Banana Ripple meet. Now this ombre was a little bit easier as well because the colours are kind of similar. You know, peach, it's got yellow tones in it, so Bellini Pop has that hint of yellow to it already, so naturally the two colours blended together. So if you are a beginner at ombres, I would recommend using two colours that are kind of from the same colour family or very similar, so that it makes practicing that ombre a lot easier. Now on the first coat, these two colours blended together effortlessly, as you could see. So we pop that in to cure for 30 seconds, and then we're going to come in and do our second coat. And like with any gel polish design, it's quite important to keep those coats nice and thin. If you apply your gel polishes too thickly, you may find that you have curing issues because your colours might ripple, or you might end up not fully curing the gel polish, and then you're going to have peeling issues, or the set's not going to last as well as it should. So do make sure that you're keeping your coats nice and thin. So we've applied our Bellini Pop and our Banana Ripple. As you can see, we've got that harsh line where the two colours meet, so I go straight in there and get rid of that by blending, and this just blended effortlessly. As you can see, I'm using quite fast brush strokes, but the video has been sped up a little bit. At times I will come in and use light feathery strokes. At times I might go a little bit harder just to speed up the two colours blending together, but I'm not going as fast as what it looks like in the video. Now when I'm happy with the ombre, I always like to come in again and make sure I've blended out those side walls, especially when you're working on a longer nail design. It's really easy to focus on that top part of the nail that the eye naturally sees, and then forget about the sides, and then they don't look as blended as the center part of the nail does. So I always like to make sure that I'm focusing on that as well. And as you can see, these two colors just melted into each other beautifully. I think this design would look so pretty with some stamping on top, or even some water decals. So if you did want to take your nail design up a level, that would look great with some additional nail art on top as well. Of course, we're going to come in again, and I'm just going to stick to top coating using the rubber top coat because I love how this smooths out any brush strokes that might be left behind. On to the fourth and final design, I'm going to start off with a base of Bellini Pop. I love this color. I really love a peachy orangey shade. I feel as though this one will take us nicely into autumn as well. If you're wanting to do some early autumn nails but you're not quite ready for deeper orange tones, I think this will be a really lovely transitional shade from summer into autumn. As you can see in two coats, it is such a beautiful shade. The color really pops on this one, so the name does suit it beautifully. And we're just going over a clear base here as well, but if you wanted these colors, the brighter colors, to pop even more, you could pop a white base coat down when you're doing your base layer. So for example, if you're coming in with your base coat, you could use RB01, which is a pigmented white base coat, and that really helps make the brighter shades like Bellini Pop. Now I'm going to come in on my palette and take Dolly Pink, True Blue and Banana Ripple, so that we have all of the colors going on in this nail, as I thought it would be a really fun design. Now one of my favorite designs to do when I get a new collection is to just kind of combine all the colors together, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to pop one of the colors down as a base and then use the other colors to kind of create like a sweeping French look or a color block look. So you could do a double French here if you would prefer a classic French look, but I just went for that sweeping color block style instead. So I'm going to start off by loading up my stripe liner brush with True Blue, brushing off some of the excess, and then I've literally just done a sweep across the nail, and then we're going to fill in that gap. And what I love about these colors is because they're so highly pigmented, I only had to do this in one coat. So even though I've only done a thin coat, I felt as though I got away with only doing it with one coat. Now if you were a bit more, if you wanted to make sure it looked really perfect, you might feel as though you need to come in with two coats, but I personally didn't feel as though the color needed it. It popped enough that you're still seeing the full vibrancy without having to come in and do two coats. So we cured our first coat of True Blue, and then we're going to come in with Dolly Pink and kind of just follow that swoosh we created with True Blue. And this is done effortlessly with the stripe liner brush. So I'm going to come in, I like to load up my my brush with enough of the polish that I can cover the area that I need to cover. But then I do like to wipe off some of the excess. Then if I need more product, I can go in and grab it as it's needed. This is a lot easier than applying loads of gel to your brush and then struggling to get a neat application because your brush is overloaded. As you can see, the brush holds enough product in those inner bristles that you can create really nice elongated strokes with it. But I just always find it a lot easier to have less on my brush than more, if that makes sense. And then I'm just going to neaten up this little swoosh, round it off a little bit more, come in and neaten up any areas along that true blue so it looks nice and sharp. And where we have already cured the true blue underneath, if I did make any mistakes with the Dolly Pink, I could clean it up with some alcohol as well. So we're going to pop that in to cure for 30 seconds. And then I was trying to think of a way to incorporate the banana ripple. I was just going to do another block of the swoosh, but I feel as though polka dots have been very popular the last couple of weeks, and I haven't actually done any polka dot nails. So I thought what I would actually do is add some cute little polka dots into True Blue and Dolly Pink. So just using the Kiki London dotting tool, I'm dotting into my gel polish, and then I kind of just had a little practice on the palette of how small the dots were going to come out. If you want them to be a bit bigger, then you need to go in with a bit more product on your dotting tool. And then I've just literally dotted along those swooshes, and I thought this design looked super cutesy. We're going to cure that for a final 30 seconds to cure our banana ripple, and then again coming in with that rubber top coat, because then this way, where our base layer is slightly thinner than those layers of gel polish we've put on top for our design, this is going to smooth everything out, so you're not going to feel that tiny little ridge between the colors and the dots. It's just going to smooth everything out, leave you with a super shiny finish. And the great thing about the rubber top coat is that it does have strengthening properties as well, so it's great for any clients who are quite hard on their nails, but for this purpose I love it for the encapsulation properties. Then this is our final 4 designs finished. I actually loved how well they all worked and looked together, but they are great individual designs on their own as well. So I really hope you all enjoyed watching. I hope you picked up some tips and tricks and enjoyed seeing all 4 of the new colors in action. If you did enjoy today's video, please do give it a thumbs up, pop us a comment below, and hit that subscription button if you haven't already. And then I shall see you in next Friday's video. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. Lots of love. Bye bye.